it's going to be powerful. So the Protestant Reformation was an amazing event in the 1500s in Europe. 1517, remember it. 1517, remember it. Well, it wasn't just Martin Luther. There's a guy named John Calvin. He believes in Martin Luther. He knows Martin Luther. He's in Switzerland. And in Switzerland, in Geneva at that time, he says, I believe in this. I know this to be correct, but I'm going to take the next step. If God is all-knowing, if God is all-powerful, if God is for all time, then what must God know the moment I am born? What must God know for all time? God knows my ultimate fate. Am I going to heaven? Am I going to hell? God knows that. There's nothing I can do about it. Remember, God saves me. I don't save myself. Therefore, what happens at my birth? My fate has already been predetermined. Predetermination is the Calvinist idea that came out of John Calvin in the 1530s in Switzerland. You want to, because salvation is so vitally important to you back at that time period, you want to be one of the elect, those select few who get to go to heaven. Known only by God, I cannot do it by work. Thus, wait, if I can't affect my ultimate fate, if I can't affect whether I'm going to heaven or hell, why not just have a good time and I don't care? Well, the power of salvation made it so that you sought those visible signs of salvation. You sought those things that told you, I'm going to heaven. I'm actually good. And you sought to avoid those things that told you, I'm actually going to hell. So the Puritans stemmed directly from the Calvinists who started in Switzerland, went to the lowlands of the Netherlands, went to Scotland, and influenced everything going on. So by the latter part of the 1500s, you don't just have Protestants in the form of Lutherans. You also have Calvinists in the form of this other religion. And again, warfare, late 1500s, you studied it last year. You got Catholics killing Protestants, killing Calvinists all over Europe, and you have an amazing warfare going on. Well, what happened at that time in the 1500s was also a king. And the king was King Henry VIII. And he said, I'm not very happily married to a very Catholic Catherine of Aragon. And I don't want her anymore because I want to have a male heir. I do not want the unsettled succession of kings that have been in the past in Europe. So I want a male heir. So he goes to the Pope and says, please, please, please annul my marriage to Catherine of Aragon and let me marry the woman I see over there, Anne Boleyn, who's very good looking, who I want to have a male heir with. Well, the Pope, of course, said no for a variety of reasons. And the king said, fine, I don't get annulment. I'm going to start my own church. And the importance of this is the fact that King Henry VIII said, I am going to start a church. The church is the Church of England. The Church of England, or the Anglican Church, is one that you need to realize is not the Catholic Church. Well, if it's not the Catholic Church, is it a Protestant church like Lutheranism? Is it a Calvinist church like the Calvinist churches in Scotland and in the Netherlands? It wasn't resolved because King Henry VIII passes away in the 1540s, and we have heirs to the throne of the Kingdom of England that simply did not settle the question. The major heir to that throne was Queen Elizabeth, and what she did was essentially say, you follow me, you get the practice of faith you want to. So what you have as a Church of England is a church that can be moved in one direction or the other. It can be more Catholic, it can be less Catholic. And what happens was that in the 1600s, searching for the male heir that King Henry VIII never had, Queen Elizabeth being a daughter, that was the only heir to the throne, they went to a place called Scotland. And in Scotland at that time, you had the Stuarts. We'll go into detail on the Stuart kings because they become very important for U.S. history. But recognize that the factors of the Church of England fighting about what it was going to be in England affected us in the American colonies drastically. In fact, the two great migrations brought people from England over to America. The Pilgrims were separatists, a very important identification to remember. Pilgrims were English people who wanted to separate from the Church of England because it was too Catholic. Where do you go if you are a separatist, not wanting to be part of England and the Church of England? The only place in the world where you had religious freedom in the 1600s was Holland. They went to the Netherlands. They prospered there. It was great there until they realized, oh, our kids are becoming too open-minded, free-thinking, Dutch-like, so we'll venture to the New World. And they set up the Plymouth Colony there in Massachusetts in 1619, 1620. The second wave of Puritans, not separatists, but Puritans, came 10 years later. They feared that the Church of England was becoming too Catholic, so they, with much more money, much more wealth, much more power, went to the Massachusetts Bay Colony and set it up. They set up a Puritan because they wanted to purify the Church of England. When they failed in that proposition, they came in the 1630s to America, and they set up the Massachusetts Bay Colony. What did both of the Pilgrims and the Puritans believe in? They were Calvinists. Remember, predestined Calvinists were the Pilgrims and the Puritans who came to America. So very clearly, the English Civil Wars of the 1640s to 1660s influenced people coming over. We'll go into detail about English politics later on. England really never resolves the issue of the Anglican Church. It is not Catholic, it is not Protestant, it's half and half. What happens in the Massachusetts Bay Commonwealth is fascinating. People come over and they set up the Congregational Church. The Congregational Church is called that because it's a church run by the congregation. Note the inherently democratic aspect of the Congregational Church. There's not a hierarchy, it's run by the people with one minister tending to his flock. The Congregational Church was in fact a church that believed in the covenant that the individual made with God. This experience saying, I am one of the elect, I do believe in predestination, I will follow this holy life that makes me a member of the church, that puts me on the path to salvation. They were led by, to a large extent, John Winthrop. And if you know an American from that time period with this church, it's John Winthrop. His famous concept was that by coming to the New World, setting up the religious community, you would be a city upon a hill for the rest of the world to look at as far as a beautiful, perfect, religious, holy place to give an example for the rest of the world. Note the arrogance, note how we view ourselves as Americans. In fact, that refrain, that city upon a hill, will come up throughout American history as this exceptional America, American exceptionalism, where we're better than the rest of the world because we are who we are. The question always comes up, was there a theocracy in Puritan New England? There was and there wasn't. To participate in the body politic, you had to be a member of the church. And in order to be a voter, in order to do anything politically, you had to be a member of the church. The purpose of the state also was to enforce the moral and religious values of the Puritan religion, of the Congregational Church. However, you could not be a church official and a state official. They separated those two. So very clearly from the start, I wanted to be in government, I could be in government.